when people say gravy, I feel like
because you're
gravy,
from up north, you think of brown.
Gravy is what a non-Italian calls sauce to feel like they're cool. And I'm like, stop saying
Here's
gravy.
my
It's
debate.
red sauce.
Here's my issue with it. Mary, the person I love the most in this world from my childhood. That's what I get on people for. I'm like, I didn't make up gravy in my head. It came from ancestors.
What drives me nuts is when non-Italians say gravy.
Oh,
I'm just like, shut the f- up.
Okay.
It's not gravy. And you're not Italian, so be quiet.
But I'm Italian, and I'm all
I know,
Italian.
No. And you can say
and
it.
I'm as Italian-American as they come, and I say gravy. If you're Italian watching this podcast, I can't believe I'm asking this because I hate this question and I hate this debate, but Keita decided to bring it up. And we're going to talk about it. Is it gravy or is it sauce? Cawfee Talk. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to I feel like I'm so strong. Good morning, which is the topic of this podcast. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cawfee Talk. Where the coffee's strong and the talk is real. I don't know. I just came up with that. I did it in the other episode. Let me know if you like it or if it's corny. I trust you guys. You are my people. I feel like I sound so strong. I feel like I have this big mouth and this strong personality. And I have been having all these guests on my podcast where I ask them because I'm always so fascinated with how people started. I'm always fascinated by the come up story. Right? Because so many of us see, I've had so many people on the podcast at this point. David Faustino from Married with Children, or Christina Perry, even Renee Graziano. All these people were once young and not doing what they do now. And I'm always fascinated with how their lives were. So a lot of the times on this podcast, I include a personal story about myself. And you guys always say how much you love getting to know me or learning about me. So I wanted to start very much with the early years. I think all of you listening already know that I came from a single mom, that my dad, even though I was real close with him, was an alcoholic. I think I had a stepfather I despised. And I had grandparents that pretty much were very instrumental in raising me. And not just my father's mother and my mother's parents, but also my mother's grandparents who were my great-grandparents. And that is really where my story began, because my mom being limited in money and funds, and because my dad wasn't really able to contribute at the time, and she left him when I was 1 year old, she leaned on her grandparents and her parents, where she could go to work and drop me off, and she could have a life because she was a 20-something-year-old and go out on weekends. And so I grew up really with 2 generations older than me. And I think a lot of times what you guys have come to love, not just about these podcasts, but even in the jokes and the reels that I do on Instagram, is that they all have this like old school nostalgic feel. And it's really because it's second nature to me. I was almost a little bit like an old lady early on. I've told a story about when I was in, pre-K, and, even though I didn't speak Italian, I was just going into the kitchen play set and saying things like Bosnigal and pasta vazul, and I was like, and the other kids were like, what is she saying? Because my mother would leave me at my great-grandmother's house, and all that woman did her whole life was make 3 meals a day for her family. And so I think even now, it's such an important part of who I am. Like being a creative, being somebody who likes to write jokes and perform. I love to create meals and cooking. Like that's almost just as important to me as writing. When I came looking for an apartment in LA, I was like shopping around and trying to find places, and I found this one place. Oh my God, it was so cute. It was in Beverly Hills. I was like, oh my God. And I walked into the apartment at my price point, and I'm like, oh my God, I could afford something in Beverly Hills. And when I went in and looked at it, I was like, where's the stove? Like, it was a small kitchen. I could accept a small kitchen, but I was like, where's the stove? And the woman showing me the apartment was like, this is LA. You cook? And I was like, I'm Italian. Yes. And the apartment had no stove. It had like this like little stove, like this like electric thing that you could, and I was like, no, this isn't going to work for me. Like, I don't want to eat out every meal. I'm even though I'm here just for work, I want to cook. I want a bowl of pasta on Sunday. So, I think that regardless of how much I've evolved, God, if I think back to like if Grandma Mary, which I'd like to believe she can see me now, but if she was really here, how interesting, how different our lives are, but yet how like the core values that she instilled in me from such an early age are still so important to me. I think that's kind of disappearing with the next generations. I think we're all getting pretty busy. Everybody seems to be so busy that the important things, like I mentioned prior in the podcast, like the Sunday dinners or things like that, are kind of becoming antiquated almost, like it's almost non-existent. And growing up with Mary, oh my God, she was so maternal. Not just cooking for us, but every time we were sick. I mean, you always wanted to go to this woman. And my grandfather was real strong, Joseph Pagano. They were married for 74 years. 74 years married. Like some people, that could be their lifespan. These people were married for 74 years. He met her on a porch. He walked by a neighbor's porch. I love the old school stories. He was 10 years older than her. And married for 74 years. In fact, when she got sick, I was in college. So I was lucky enough to have my great-grandmother till I was almost 20. I think I was 19 at the time. The entire family moved into the house because she was the matriarch. And if she only had 2 more weeks to go, we were all going to be there. So, I think we had hospice care coming at the end, but none of us left. Who slept on chairs? Who slept on couches? We were going to be there with Mary. And my grandfather, she was just 91. It was essentially renal failure, her organs started shutting down. And at her funeral, which we were all devastated, at her funeral, my grandfather, who never showed any type of emotion, was like throwing himself over her coffin, blaming the doctors for her death. Like, she was 91 years old.
Wait, how old was he?
He was 101.
Oh my God.
He was 2 months shy of 105. He once told me that God forgot about him. And, she was just, everything was centered around Mary. And I think my mom did a really good job at trying to keep the tradition going and having, my great uncle over her house every Sunday, and her great, my great aunt, her aunt, which was my grandfather's brother and sister, and nobody ever got along, and everybody always had a martini, and everybody was always screaming over the supersat and provolone. There was nobody ever getting along, but every Sunday, no matter how much yelling or cursing existed, everybody still showed up and still sat down together. And I don't think we're living in a time like that, and it's okay. Let me start off by saying it's okay. Just because I like to keep tradition, and I mentioned I love to have, people around. It could be the family you've created for yourself. I have personally, which is very hard to do as a fiercely loyal Italian, I have personally removed myself from certain family members, or I have stopped access to me from certain family members because of toxicity, because the language used towards me and the, views about my life aren't approved, or there's, let's just say it, there's jealousy that this is a common thread amongst other family members. You guys, I'm sure, have all experienced this, but there's certain jealousy towards me. And at 45 years old, I need to protect myself in ways I wasn't allowed to be protected as a kid. And so it's really hard to make that choice to say, I'm going to not speak to like an immediate family member, or I'm going to say no to holidays at a certain person's house because I know what's important. I know what I need. I know I don't need to sacrifice my happiness or my safety to appease other people and show up at somebody else's house. That's really hard to do when we come from the culture we come from. But I've made that choice. Nevertheless, I still hold true to being a good Italian daughter. I'm taking my dad to Sicily in October. He turns 80 years old. And regardless of what my childhood looked like, regardless of how he was able to show up for me or not show up for me, I'm still going to bring him back to the town his family came from. I'm still going to have 10 days in Italy with my father, that I think a lot of good is going to come from that. And I'm not doing it for any other reason other than I really want to. I'm not doing it, because I want to say I did it. I'm doing it because I do want to spend that time with him and I do want to have these moments with him. And as I've said before on the podcast, I think my dad did the best he could from where he came from. And I think that the reason why I am that way is because of being raised in a household, I should say, with an older generation that felt family was the most important thing. And so now I can maybe pick and choose which family is the most important to me, but I still hold those values. And I still have my best memories are of Mary and cooking in her kitchen. I'll never forget the most exciting thing for me as a kid was right before Thanksgiving. She would make, I think they called it like holiday wedding soup or something, but we would roll, without exaggeration, maybe 1,000 little meatballs for this big soup that had to feed like 30 people. And I would just remember sitting in her kitchen. It would be my mom, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my aunt. And it was just like...
How'd you make the meatballs?
So the meatballs for the soup were different than the regular meatballs.
All right, fuck the soup. Talk about the regular meatballs.
Do you know that meatball recipe was one of the notes I had in my phone for one of the podcasts?
Guys,
I'm going to give it up. I don't know exact measurements. This is such an Italian woman thing because my grandma Mary, God love her, she was the purest kind of soul that there was. But we would ask her for recipes and she would always leave out one ingredient because she did not want us to make anything as good as her. I know that that's what it was because then her cooking and her bringing everybody over every Sunday was like her identity. And so while she was alive, she wasn't gonna make sure that nobody could repeat that.
All right, you're stalling. Come on,
I'm
give it
stalling
up.
on all right, here's my meatball recipe. I do. Are you ready? So say 2 pounds of meat, right? 1 pound is beef. Then it's a half a pork and a half a veal.
Okay.
So my meatballs are beef, pork, and veal.
Okay.
2 eggs, a lot of cheese, a lot of garlic, a lot of parsley. And I go and I do a little bit of water. I sprinkle a little bit of water every now and then to keep moistening them up. Oh, and breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs are an important part. So I think, did I say breadcrumbs, cheese, parsley, garlic, eggs, water, beef, pork, veal. Lots of parsley.
That's almost how we made ours.
Lots of garlic. What did you do? Was it just beef?
No, fuck no. 50-50 pork, beef. Then we didn't use breadcrumbs. We used chunks of bread.
Wet bread, yeah.
Like chunks. And then garlic, but the garlic was not finely minced. It was, kind of big pieces.
Okay.
And then a couple eggs, yeah.
Parsley?
A little bit of parsley, a little bit of flour, and you just mix that all up and then pan fry it. Until they were dark, and then chuck them in the sauce.
Chuck them, yeah. My favorite meatballs are the ones I cook all the way through, and I always leave a few on the side, just fried meatballs, just like that. And then I throw the others in the gravy or sauce.
We didn't say gravy.
Yes.
We never said that.
Mary said gravy.
Mary
said
sauce.
gravy. And
I think that's a New York City thing.
I think it's the East Coast thing. Yeah, East Coast.
But upstate, no one I knew called it gravy.
Some people in
Utica.
Chicago still, I don't know. I hate the debate because I'm like, I have brain cells. I don't want to fight over sauce versus gravy. But it's like the biggest debate. And people go, you're not real Italian if you say gravy. And Chaz says gravy.
See, the thing about gravy is like, when people say gravy, I feel like
because you're
gravy,
from up north, you think of brown.
Well, yes, but I also think like gravy is what a non-Italian calls sauce to feel like they're cool. And I'm like, stop saying
Here's
gravy.
My debate.
It's red sauce.
Here's my issue with it. Mary, the person I love the most in this world from my childhood. That's what I get on people for. I'm like, I didn't make up gravy in my head. It came from ancestors.
No, yeah.
So to me, it's like a treasured word because it's like part of my childhood, part of the vernacular that came from this woman that I just adored, and that was the matriarch of my family. So when people insult it, I'm like, you're insulting Mary. So, so it becomes this, I think that's why people are so passionate about it. I don't think it has to do with whether you say a word right or wrong. I think it has to do with the meaning behind what person first said it to you.
What drives me nuts is when non-Italians say gravy.
Oh,
I'm just like, shut the fuck up.
Okay.
It's not gravy. And you're not Italian, so be quiet.
But I'm Italian, and I'm all Italian.
No. And you can say
and I'm as Italian-American as they come, and I say gravy.
All right, well, let's do a poll. So those of you who are watching this, put in the comments. We're going to tally up and see who wins.
Tony
Gravy.
from France watches this podcast every week.
Well, but
Tommy
Tony is
Stiggs.
Listen,
Tommy's from Jersey, Belleville. I want to know.
Non-Italians can't
They're Italian.
vote, though.
They're Italian.
Well,
if you're Italian watching this podcast, I can't believe I'm asking this because I hate this question and I hate this debate. But Keita decided to bring it up, and we're going to talk about it. Is it gravy or is it sauce? Let me know. Mary Pagano, Marie said gravy, and for forever in my heart and mind and mouth, I will say gravy. In fact, I am writing something very special about the word, but I can't give any more details about that. Not about the word, but I'm throwing the name in. What?
When we were kids, Romano cheese was like $2 a pound. And then all of a sudden, some fucking chef on TV used Romano.
Can't. Locatelli, baby.
I know. And now it's like $50 a pound. It used to be so cheap. We'd get it by the blocks. And you could only get it, when I was a kid, you could only get it in upstate New York. We moved to Ohio, and you couldn't get that cheese anywhere.
Romano inflation.
Yeah, and it's just bullshit because it's now it's as expensive as Parmesan.
Yeah.
Which is the whole reason we had Romano, is because we couldn't afford Parmesan.
I love Romano. I mean,
I think it's like, way better.
I put it on everything. I put grated cheese on my soup, in my soup. I put it, pasta, obviously. I mean, I use it. Sometimes, I even like chicken cacciatore. Sometimes if I throw it over pasta, I put a little cheese. Like, I am like, it's like my condiment. But.
Did you put it on your gravy?
I put it on my pasta, on my macaroni and gravy.
So also,
macaroni.
What was Mary's pasta of choice?
I feel like back then it was very simple. We had like spaghetti or penne. I feel like back then there wasn't all these different, we didn't have all these different pastas. Maybe the short rigatoni, but other than that.
See, my grandma wide rigatoni every time.
Oh, the big wide ones. We had the big wide ones. They almost looked like pillows, right? Like they were so big, big and square. The big rigatoni remind me of like my childhood too. Yeah, I forgot about those.
Like she always made it with the big rigatoni. We never had spaghetti or.
I always say when I make pasta now, I make the brown rice quinoa pasta, and I love it. It's like gluten-free, but I always go, Mary is turning in her grave right now as I make this pasta. It just doesn't taste the same? I've made it taste the same in my head because I, being who I am, have to eat pasta every day, almost every day. I eat pasta almost every day. So I have a bowl, usually before a big show, 2 hours before, a big bowl of pasta. And because that's who I am, guys. I'm an Italian-American with a big mouth who comes from loud, strong women. Mary wasn't loud, but she was certainly strong. Rose Pagano, who I've talked about on this podcast, was very strong. And Rose Cannistraci, who I have yet to talk about on this podcast, other than that conversation with David Faustino where I told you She told my grandfather, if you want a blowjob, I got a gun. Pretty strong personality. So I come from strong women. You guys are listening to this podcast, respecting and loving a strong woman. And it means so much for me, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming to the shows. Thank you for coming to the shows and mentioning Cawfee Talk. Let me tell you why. Keita can attest to this. There are times I'm like, am I really doing, like, do I really want to do this podcast? Do I want to do these episodes? What? And then I do a show or I read the comment section and I'm like, yeah, I want to keep doing these episodes. I also want to make sure I'm giving you guys what you want. So if you want, message me, DM me. You know I see all my DMs. I respond to all the comments on these podcasts. Tell me if there's a specific topic or a word or phrase you want to hear from me so we can really make this the community I'm trying to build. All shows are listed at tarajokes.com. Guys, these are fun, but I promise you, when Tommy Stiggs to see me in person, all of you listening, those of you who have seen me in person, you know that nothing is more fun than when we're in a room together. So the whole point of this is just to keep connecting with you guys. I would love to connect in person. I have Red Bank, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Los Angeles, Burbank, California. Yes. Connecticut, Atlantic City, Florida. People who asked me to be in Orlando, I'll be in Sanford, Fort Lauderdale, Naples, Florida. There are shows in October. Oh, Rochester, New York. I have a very special guest coming to that show, so you better show up. Nyack, Rutherford, New Jersey. And then 10 days in Sicily. And the content that I will be creating from those moments with my father are going to be watch-worthy. So, guys, I appreciate you. Your mugs for Cawfee Talk, you can also get on my website, tarajokes.com. All my ticket links are there. I'm going to have to change out of this outfit now and fist fight Keita over the sauce versus gravy.
Vote
below.
Gravy,
sauce
no.
Or gravy.
Sauce, yes.
Sauce
Vote
or
below.
gravy. Gravy. I love you guys. Cawfee Talk.